Hello there, it's me, Sari, here again, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about stamping when it comes to ink pads, stamp types, papers and coloring methods. And I thought I'd start by showing you different kinds of stamps. I mean, there are stamps that are so-called rubber stamps. Some of them come mounted on a piece of easy mount. Some of them come on a wooden block like this with the image in front, and some of them come with just the rubber itself, and then you have to mount it on easy mount or perhaps tack and peel yourself. There are also sort of, I think this is called a silicone stamp, even though it does have a sort of a block. It's not a wooden block, it's a foam block with the image in front. And you do need a special kind of printing technique with this one. And there are also foam stamps. And when it comes to foam stamps, they do tend to need more ink or color than other stamps. So let's see if I could just show you something. Let's get started somehow. And just one thing I wanted to show you. You might also stamp with you might actually stamp with, let's say, stencils. Something that can create a pattern. And now, for instance, I'm just going to take a dye ink and I'm just going to pounce it like this. So I'm getting an imprint here, aren't I? So this is a way of stamping, even though this isn't considered stamping. Of course, this is called stenciling. But still, you can get the effect of a stamp using a stencil, perhaps. And when it comes to stamping, I mean, just using a regular rubber stamp, you could, I mean, if you're not going to do any kind of coloring or anything like that, you could just go for a regular ink pad. Let's see, I'm just using VersaFine here. And the bird could be looking at the stars now, couldn't it? Like so. So if you would, let's see, I think I'm skipping too much now, so I need to go back to basics. But I just wanted to showcase these stamps to you. So let's see, that was a ink pad like that. For goodness sake, now I'm completely lost. I need to get my feather pad. Okay, so this is just a rubber stamp. And, you know, I thought I forgot about to tell you the difference between a regular rubber stamp that hasn't got anything on the back and compare it to these cling mounted stamps that actually have the figure on the back of the easy mount. And I think that is a good thing, because then you can see where you are stamping actually. So let's see, I'm going to take that, well, let's see. I think I'll get back now. So they're wooden, yeah, I talked about the stamps now, didn't I? So the benefits of having a wood mounted stamp, let's say, you have the block and it's easy for you to stamp. Let's see, I'm going to use an archival ink this time. I'm not sure how much ink there is left in this one. I mean, just look at that witch with the cat and everything. I mean, this is a lovely stamp. And so a wood mounted stamp does have the block you can hold on the stamp with in itself. And this makes it, of course, a little bit bulky when you're going to store it. It's going to be a bit expensive if you're going to buy it abroad. And it's going to be rather heavy and also space consuming. I mean, this does take more space than the stamp without the block, now doesn't it? So there are some drawbacks, but of course there are some benefits of that as well. This one is sort of the similar thing. It is as thick as the wood mounted block, so you're not gaining anything by getting that. Now I'm going to just use a StazOn ink just to see what the imprint would be like. But these stamps come from, let's see if I can remember the name, it's La Blanche. And they have some beautiful figures, and they are perfect if you're going to do some collage stamping, let's say. These are just beautiful to stamp with, but you need to think about the fact that you place your stamp like so, and then you're just going to press it all over the image like this, so you get the imprint there. You needn't do too much work, mind you, but just be sure that you actually press your fingers on top. And before you leave your hands from the stamp, just lift it up like that. So there you have the image, and I do like the fact that there are so many things going on with this image. There's a bicycle and clocks and a person and everything. And when it comes to using these cling mounted stamps, I'm just going to go for a memento, just to show you that you can stamp with almost any kind of an ink pad. I'm just going to put it there. And usually when I stamp, I just push it from the top down. I'm not going to wiggle things. So, and before I leave my hand completely, I'm making sure that I do still have some pressure there before I can get my both hands and just lift it up in that fashion. And this stamp should be a little bit weathered and torn, as the picture says, so it's a really nice stamp. And then I'm going to move on to some other ink pads. These are chalk inks. And I do like the way you can hold them. I mean, just look at this. I mean, it's like I'm holding a cup of tea or something with the little finger pointing out there. And I do like the way these stamp. Just look at that imprint. Really nice. And let's see if it can stretch. Well, it doesn't go for more than perhaps 2 images. So when it comes to cleaning your stamps, I'm usually using a baby wipe or something. Sometimes if I have a lot of ink on there, I might use a wipe with some cleaning liquid on. Or I could go for just a regular cleaning thing for inks. Let's say if I can find it. I mean, here's a cleaner for StazOn ink and other solvent inks as well. There are other kinds of cleaning dabbers that you might go for. And some inks won't become clean or won't rub off from with just a baby wipe, but you can actually try it out first. And you might have to rub it a little bit. You might also go for just a towel and rub it off like that, depending on the way you think about your stamps and how careful you are about contaminating them with some cleaning liquids and such. Let's see if this one, in this case I didn't even know which one was the front because they are rather beautiful. And in this case I can't really get that, and I suppose that was the StazOn ink, that wasn't it. So I need to use this StazOn solvent cleaner there. And with this one, I don't see if I can make it cleaner, that one either. So let's see if I could just use the StazOn cleaning liquid here just to see if this one helps. And then I'm just going to blotch it off like this. Well, perhaps it did get a little. Let's see. Well, you see, it's the world of difference. So when it comes to StazOn ink, you should definitely have the StazOn cleaner as well, if you want your stamps to be pretty. And so there you have it with the stamps. And the one thing I would like to point out to you when it comes to stamps and making stamps of your own, you could actually die cut funky foam and make that into your stamp. So let's see, I do believe I had something that I could showcase you. I have die cut 2 pieces here from Memory Box, and I have glued them down with just some double-sided tape, and this could work as a tack and peel sort of. And I'm just keeping these die cut pieces here because if I'm going to start peeling this off, I mean it's going to break and everything, so I'm just leaving them on this block as it is. So that's one drawback, of course, using foam as your own stamp. I mean, this is a rather thin foam, I must say. But when it comes to foam stamps with that sort of oily surface, it does need a little bit more ink than other stamp surfaces, I must say. And I'm just going to put it there, and then you get the imprint. So I mean, just use your imagination and run wild and free with your inks and things that you could stamp with. So let's see. When it comes to, let's see if there's anything else that I could mention to you when it comes to rubber stamps. Anyway, rubber stamps are made in a sort of hot press, and that means that you could actually. These could actually endure heat better than, let's say, clear stamps would. Let's say you were to melt a lot of embossing powder on a piece of chipboard or something, and you melt it and you remelt it and you remelt it with more powder as you go along. And if you were to like to stamp your image into that melted embossing powder, then you could actually get a nice debossed effect. But I would actually like to recommend you to use a sort of a glue pad, or let's say an embossing pad, before you do so, because then it's going to release easier from that melted thing. So rubber stamps are good for that kind of a thing. I'm not sure how well a silicone stamp or a clear stamp would actually work with that kind of a method, because these aren't done in the heat process. I mean, these are just, I think they are made by a lightning source somehow, so they aren't that durable, I should say. You might succeed a couple of times, but I'm not sure how long you could make that last. And mostly you get really good results stamping with rubber stamps. And when it comes to clear stamps, of course, I mean, they come from different kinds of materials, so the results may vary. The price also varies in between these clear stamps. Some of them are cheap as, let's say, hell, whilst some of them with a bit better quality, let's say Technique Tuesday, Lawn Fawn, Hero Arts and Crafter's Secrets, I mean. They are a little bit more on the pricey side, but they give really, really, really good results. So you sort of get what you pay for. So when it comes to clear stamps, I mean, you could have lots of fun with them because you can really see where you're going to place it. This is easy for you if you're going to do some collage stamping, and collage stamping is one of my favorite techniques, you see, when it comes to stamping. So you see exactly where you point it or where you place your stamp. It's easy in that way. And when it comes to foam stamps, well, they are sort of cheap, and you can make them yourself. You cannot just cut a circle or cut a square and just start stamping with that. But in that case, you need to think about, with a foam stamp, you can't really get a sort of detailed image. You could try, of course, you could try die cutting a word perhaps and gluing it down and keeping it there, mind you, because if I'm going to peel this one off, I'm sure it's going to break. And well, you might need to ink it up more or color it up more. And when it comes to different kinds of stamps, well, you have these motif stamps and you have shape stamps and you've got text stamps and everything. So there are many sort of stamps that you can have fun with. Let's see if I could move on now. When it comes to ink pad types, there are, in my way of seeing this, at least 5 different kinds of ink pad types. There are dye inks, and I'm just going to pick out a couple of them to you. Let's see, dye inks. These are the sorts or the brands that I have got at home. Let's take this one aside for a minute. So I have something from Memento, and the thing to know about dye inks that it does color the fibers itself in the paper, so it goes a little bit deeper, it dries quicker, it is water based, and this means that you shouldn't watercolor with an image that you have stamped with these, because then you need to go to a pigment ink or perhaps a permanent ink as a StazOn ink is. Let's move back to the dye inks. They work on all sorts of papers, but perhaps mulberry papers and other sort of really absorbent papers. I mean, the ink is rather wet and it just goes through and spreads. So you might not get a really crisp and nice image. If you want a sort of bled image, I mean, that's the way to go then, I suppose. And I think that they're easy to work with. I mean, they're easy to clean up. There's not that much of a fuss. So let's just see. I'm just going to ink up. In this case I'm using a Lawn Fawn ink. And you get a nice yellow image there. Let's see if I can zoom it up a little. I'm a little bit afraid of losing myself when I start zooming in like this. But let's see where I'll end up. And the cleaning, especially from a clear stamp like this, is really easy. So let's try a Lawn Fawn. My goodness, I had 2 Lawn Fawns. That was not my intention. So let's see if I should go for a Hero Arts instead then. I'm going to go for a Hero Arts. This is a soft pool. And I'm thinking that it's going to give me a really nice sort of pastel beige or pastel turquoise color. So let's see if I could just change the Memories dye ink then to perhaps a vanilla, soft vanilla. These inks were the ones that I actually started off with. These were the ones that we had in Sweden. And that is a softer vanilla, let's see, color there. So let's see, that one goes there. And I haven't used the Memento yet. This is also a dye ink, water soluble, I should say. And there you have that one. I'm just stamping the same kind of a stamp with different colors. I mean, you could create really nice background effects now, couldn't you? So I do tend to fancy the clear stamps a lot. And they are also space-saving stamps, because you see, I mean, if you take it away from the block itself, you don't really have that much thickness. They are lightweight and everything, and I just like clear stamps a lot. So dye inks. Distress inks are also dye inks, but they have a sort of a different consistency of them. They dry a little bit more slowly, so that means that you could actually experiment with embossing. If you're just quick enough, you could actually pour some embossing powder on top of this and just emboss it. And they are water reactive, so even when they are dry, they are still going to react with water. So let's say you were to make a background with distress ink. And you let it dry and everything, and then you want to go back to it later. And let's say I were to stamp, I'm just going to stamp with a different color of distress ink, and I'm going to use a pigment ink just to show you the difference. So now I'm just going to use Salty Ocean just as a color, not anything particular. I'm going to stamp it there, and then I'm going to go for a pigment ink which is going to hold the color in. And the thing about pigment inks, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about soon enough, is that they have a little bit longer drying time. So if you want a pigment ink sort of ink, I mean, this is oil based, but it still belongs to the pigment ink group somehow. Archival ink dries quicker, so if you want to move in a speedily fashion, I mean, archival ink and distress inks really go well together. I'm just going to get some water, and if I spray on this, or let's say I'm just going to take a little bit of water in my hand and splotch it there, the distress ink will react with water. And it will give you a sort of an effect. I'm just going to get some paper so I can blotch it off. So now it has had some time to sit there, and as you can see, the blue butterfly is starting to wick. The color is giving away. And I'm just going to pick it up like that, and you get a really nice bleached effect with this method, just by adding on some water to distress inks. So no matter how long it has been with the distress ink, it's still going to react with water. And if I compare it to the black butterfly there, which was stamped with archival ink, it is crisp. The image is still crisp. I mean, you might succeed. I mean, if you want a sort of a shady look, I mean, it might be fun to stamp with distress inks, but you have to remember that they will react with water. So that it's an effect that you might want, or you might want to avoid from. So let's see. So in this case you can see that you have some beautiful alterable possibilities with distress inks, and I do love distress inks. I mean, by the end of this year I'm sure I'll have all of the ink pads because I just want them. That's the way it is. So they are great for creating background colors and everything. Let's see if I had a sample I could show you. This is something that I made years and years ago. So I've just used several distress ink colors that I have worked in like that with a blending tool, and then I have stamped on it. And if you can see the paper here, this is a sort of a cardstock paper with a little bit of texture, and I lucked out when it came to stamping these images. Text stamps are a little bit more difficult, I'm sure. I can still see sort of what it says. So just making beautiful backgrounds with distress inks and stamping on a regular basis and just making them react and sort of create a bleach effect. I mean, there are so much fun and more things that you could do with distress inks. And you could, of course, think about the fact, let's do another experiment here. I'm just going to drag on some distress ink like this. And let's say I were to want to sort of protect that surface. I want to seal the color in before I continue stamping. So I'm just going to take a little bit of color here. I just hope that I have a clean finger. So I'm just going to take something to pick up the paste with. And a little goes a long way, so you needn't take that much. So just take it on your finger and start rubbing. Somehow the distress ink doesn't react to this, so you can actually rub it down there without the color releasing. So just think about that. So now I have a sort of a glossy surface here, and I've got lots of microglaze still left, so I might as well just put it in the jar. Let's not waste anything. Just going to wipe off my finger, and I think Tim Holtz have taught me to just rub away the excess like that. And let's see what could happen if I were to stamp now with another distress ink. Let's go for a chipped sapphire this time. Now of course the chipped sapphire stamped image might start to bleed because it's still distress ink now, isn't it? So you can see there's a difference in color actually. I don't believe I have any microglaze there, but I have it there. So it is a sort of a paler version. And let's move ahead with the water. Where on earth did I put the spray bottle there? Let's do the same thing. And now the water just sits on top. It doesn't go in at all. You can see that the water splotches are there. It doesn't go in. And they are also up there. So it's a sort of a protection thing there. Just going to wipe it off so I can continue with my work here. So if you want to seal distress ink, you should definitely go for some distress microglaze. There might be Judikins that actually did make this product before, but now it has got the distress brand on it. So let's move ahead with some pigment inks. Pigment inks are waterproof. They are thicker and richer in color. They are with some bright and vibrant colors, and they are fade resistant, but they do not dry on glossy paper unless you heat set it. And with pigment inks you should always think about that the drying time might be rather long, so you have to bear that in mind, especially if you're going to do some watercoloring perhaps, or just do whatever you want to afterwards. Let's see if I can just clean this one up. So let's see, I mean there are lots of different kinds of pigment inks, and the one thing that you should think about, of course, is that with the long drying time you could actually benefit from that and just pour on some embossing powder. You could just go, I mean let's say you were to stamp with a color like this, and then you pour clear embossing powder on top of it, then you're going to get a perfectly turquoise and beautiful imprint like that. So, and if you're going to do some watercoloring, let's say with either Prima's watercolor pencils, or perhaps Spectrum Noir's aqua markers, or even the distress markers. I mean, that's the way to go with the pigment inks. So let's say now actually, well, I can take that later. So here I am, and the one thing that got me going just the other day was that I wanted to sort of have a clue on what the ink pads look like. You know, I think I should take this later. I'm sorry about being so disorganized. There are so many things that I want to spread out to the world, so this is the way it is right now, I'm sorry to say. So when it comes to the pigment inks, they have a long drying time, as I told you, but they give really nice impressions, and the color is really rich. The paper that I have been working on is a sort of color copy paper, and it has got a sort of a slick surface. I mean, it's a really nice paper to work on. I believe this one is 200 grams. I like it to that fact that I do like papers that are a little bit more sturdy. So if I'm just going to turn this one over, just to work on with the pigment inks, let's see what could happen here. I just want to point out, yeah, so there might be a reason for me to actually bring this one in now. So I'm just going to skip everything about the pigment inks for a while and just show you my color charts. So when it comes to making charts for your pens perhaps, or your inks, just, I mean, I made the skeleton, or let's say the base for this, in a Word program in the computer, and I just wrote down the colors that I had. So it's really custom made for me. So in this case, I'm just showing you the Prima Marketing Chalk Edge inks, and they are the beautiful sort of ironing thing looking, and they are really nice. So they are really soft and pale colors in the top row, and they are the pastel colors. You can see sort of, they are really faint. And then they come to the other colors, and I just felt like I really wanted a nice looking color chart, so I know which color to grab when I'm doing my stamping or working or whatever. And just imagine this beautiful sort of pastel color chart. I mean, just imagine you working with these beautiful ink pads. They are wonderful. I just fell in love with them just the other week, so I didn't even know about them until I just ordered them. So when it comes to other ink pads, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about StazOn later. But I did stamp the ones that I had with both the StazOn and the Mementos. And I sort of like the way that I can compare the intensity of the color with the different yellow ones. So I can see that there is still a difference between the colors that I have, so I can really get a nice spectrum of colors. And here I've got some dye inks. It's Hero Arts, Lawn Fawn and Memories, and I mean, they look rather nice now, don't they? And especially when you have a butterfly, it's really nice. And then of course I've got the archival inks, and I had to go with some cogwheels in the meanwhile. This I want to point out for you. This is a solid stamp, versus this one is a sort of a motif stamp with lots of white in it, so it doesn't really cover the paper completely. When it comes to different kinds of clear stamps, mostly that have a solid imprint on them, it might be difficult to color it up. Different inks have a various difficulty of coloring them in. So let's say perhaps distress inks, they might be difficult to work on with some types of clear stamps. Bear in mind that. But look at that beautiful color chart of archival inks. I love them. And then the final one, I just wanted to point out one thing to you, because this is something that I learned yesterday when I was stamping these. I started off with the VersaFines, and then comes the Encore and the Versacolor. And I've got some beautiful metallic shades there as well. But this is what I want to talk to you about. There must have been some kind of a mishap when I got these. So the VersaFine, I mean, I'm not saying that every ink pad is wrong, but in this case there must be something wrong, because I ordered this one thinking that I would be getting this beautiful turquoise color. But when I ink it up, I mean, so far so good, right? But when I ink it up, it gets rather dark. So I'm just going to wipe this one off, and I'm going to use the smaller one. It's the same name for it, Deep Lagoon. And by accident I got this. I didn't even remember that I had the big one. So by accident I got this one. And just found out that, hey, the color should have been like this. So in this case, I'm just thinking about contacting the manufacturer, just showing them that, okay, this must be wrong. Because if I compare it to, let's say, the Majestic Blue, it still isn't the same color. I mean, it's a nice shade and all, but I think that the color, the name of the color on this lid must be wrong. It must be wrong. I mean, I can't see anything else with it. And so in this case, it's really nice for you to know, make your color charts so you know what the colors are like. So, as I have been telling you, long drying time with pigmenting, depending on the surface, of course. Some papers just suck the color right in. And let's see if I can make a nice color chart for you. Just trying I'm just going to use the butterfly for easy access here. So let's see, I'm just going to move on with the Encore, and it's a beautiful series of metallic inks. This one has got 4 colors, so I'm just going to place the ink approximately at the same place, because otherwise I'll be muddling them up, and I don't want that. So if I stamp it like that, I'm getting a really nice, vivid image. Just look at the shimmer. Clean it up. These inks have lots of ink on them, so you need to clean them up in between. So let's go for the golden Encore. And there we have it. It's a nice shimmery effect on that one as well. And let's go for Brilliance. I'm not sure how dry or wet this one is. It seems like it's rather new. I don't think I have even used it that much. So Copper from Brilliance. Cosmic Copper, that is. It's a bit more faint than I thought. Perhaps I need to ink it up better. I mean, just the ink on this stamp looks like it's ready to go, but I think I'll just put in some more just to see if I can get a better result, because I think that is rather faint. Well, it didn't improve much, but it did get a little bit darker, so I'm not that happy with that outcome, I must say. Let's say, would it be better to put it on black paper? Let's see. Oopsie. And some ink pads come with a protective plastic sheet like this. Don't throw it away. I mean, it will just make your ink dry quicker, so just keep it there. You know, actually I like it better on black. You see? So you need to try some of your inks out on different kinds of papers, because the black was really nice, I must say. Then I'm going to move on to Memento Lux. This is a really rich ink pad, and this one is for, especially for mixed media projects. So I believe that this one is waterproof, as the other ink pads, from Pigment ink pads, of course. And I think that, I'm not sure about the drying time, it might be a little longer, if I don't remember incorrectly. So that's the sort of grey flannel there. A really nice grey colour, I must say. And let's go for the Versa colour. This is also an ink pad that I have been seeing quite a long time in the scrapbooking stores here in Sweden. So I believe that this is a rather common stamp ink pad, let's say. And the Cardinal doesn't turn up any more red than that. So this is also a little bit disappointing, because I was thinking that it was going to be a little bit more vivid and strong. Now I'm going to move on to a Delicata. And I'm actually going to try it out on the black paper as well, just to give you the difference. So there is that golden, and it's a beautiful shimmer, I think. Beautiful golden color. So let's see if I'm going to ink it up once again. And some of the ink pads have a lid that needs to go all the way down, so make sure you put them on completely. And here is the golden one, and just look at that. It sort of turns a little bit green in my eyes, but still the imprint is rather nice. And I should actually go with the Encore Metallic Party as well on the black paper, just to have a look, see what it looks like. Oh my goodness, Just look at that. I need to just get the light right, because it's really nice when you look at it from my point of view anyway. And then I'm just going to finish things off with the Encore Gold on black paper. And just imagine making some wedding cards or something with these beautiful metallic colors. I need to start using them more, I must say. It's nice to remind myself with the different kinds of inks here. So now I'm ready to move on with some other inks. So I have covered now the dye inks and the pigment inks. And when it comes to the chalk inks, well, I could perhaps do a little bit. Well, I have shown you them. And what I like about them is that they dry quickly. And I just like holding it. I mean, that's half the pleasure of it. I can still have that pointer finger there when I'm drinking some tea, let's say. One drawback of using a small ink pad is that since I'm getting so close to the image, and this has got a sort of a sponge thing, it's really contaminating or dirtying up the ink, or perhaps even the ink, the cloth, bloody hell, the clear block. So that's something that I have a problem with. So if you have the possibility of having a big ink pad, that's what I tend to go for, because I like that more. I have more control over it and everything, and well, I suppose it's a question of technique really, but I sort of seem to think that the smaller the ink pad, the more messier the stamp. So here you have those colors, and they dry quickly, but they have a tendency of actually leaving a little bit of ink. So you might have to heat set these in order to make them dry, but still I believe that they do have a tendency of releasing color, but I still love the colors, I can't help it. So when it comes to solvent-based inks, StazOn inks are the perfect solution for that. And you can stamp on every kind of a surface, but they say that perhaps you shouldn't stamp on fabrics. I'm not sure why. Perhaps the alcohol in it sort of destroys the cloth, I'm not sure. So there you have a really nice green color. Some inks might go on stronger on paper first, and then they sort of start to fade out. So let's just have a look-see at these StazOn inks that I have got in my storage here. So the cactus green is this one. Depending on the paper, of course, you might get a different result. I think that this one is a little bit darker. But the pumpkin and the blazing red and the timber brown, there are lots of beautiful colors. And the one good thing about StazOn inks is that, I mean, as it goes, it stamps on different kinds of surfaces. And that means that it also stamps on plastic. And I, who love shrink plastic decorations, I'm in heaven when I have the chance of actually making some decorations. So I made a video yesterday showing you that I have started working on the bird crazy stamps from Tim Holtz. And so they shrink up to the fourth of the size. And I do stamp with the StazOn ink on one side. In this case, I'm actually using a stamp press. Let's see. Because a plastic is a really slippery surface, so it's really easy to just glide away when you are stamping. So I would actually like to recommend you to use a stamp press when you are stamping on slickery surfaces, because then you're just going to press it down like that and release it, and it's going to pop up by itself. And so I'm stamping on the really slickery side, and then I'm turning it over and coloring it in with some alcohol pens. In this case I have used Spectrum Noirs, but you might use Copic markers or perhaps even the Pro marker pens. So you might have lots of fun making these, because then you can make these into decorations or even bracelets or even necklaces and everything, or even keychain decorations. So you can have lots of fun with them. So solvent ink based ink dries quickly on most surfaces, and especially on plastic it just dries like that. And then you're going to need the StazOn cleaner, definitely, if you want to clean up the stamp afterwards. And then we come to watermark stamps, or let's say embossing ink pads. So forget about the stamps, ink pads. They tend to get really muddled up after a while. and but they are really great if you want to use some embossing powder techniques with them. So just going to ink your stamp up. Let's see if I could just get some kind of a embossing technique going on here. So I'm just going to go for the butterfly here. You know, I think I should actually take a smaller piece of paper if I can find it. I'm just going to take the manila tag that I've got here. Let's see what could happen. So you can see that there is something going on there. And in this case, I usually go for the colors that I use most. And I just keep it in a jar like this, because then I can just dip the paper inside and not have any kind of hassle with papers and everything. It's just clean, easy access like that. And then I'm going to heat set it with my heat gun. So now you can start to see the magic happening. I mean, it's going to go from that pearled effect to a really shiny. You can see that there, can't you? I do like embossing. I wish I did it more. But there you have it. And the one thing you should think about when it comes to embossing is that you are creating a resist effect. I mean, embossing powder is made out of plastic. It has been, I mean, just look at that butterfly. My goodness, what a result. My goodness, I have never embossed that before. So if I just let this one dry for a little bit, and I were to go in with distress inks, let's see what could happen. I'm just going to go for the red one because that was the thing that I had here. But at the same time I'm thinking that I should actually just cover half of it, so I could show you what it would look like if I were to use Memento ink. So what happens is that since this is plastic and I'm wiping on ink, it doesn't take it. It resists. And this is a plastic surface. So let's see if I can find my Memento inks. Where are they? There. So I'm going to take a green one. Let's see if I can find something to work with then. I'm not sure which color I have here, but I'm thinking that I might make it work anyway. I mean, distress inks aren't the only ones that you can blend with. I mean, you might actually succeed with Memento as well. It is of course a softer color. It isn't as strong as the distress ink is. But if you're going for a sort of pastel-y look, you could use the same kind of an ink blending tool and just work it away there. Let's see if I can just pick up another color in a minute. So there was a green new sprout. And in this case I'm just going to use the same one because I can't really find the other one. And in this case I can get a really nice and soft blending there. Let's see if I can make it work with the distress ink. I ought to be able to do that. And always remember to put on your lid. Always. Do not leave your working surface for just 1 minute without putting the lid on. So there you have it. You could actually just mix the Memento inks with the distress inks, for example. You could also go for, I'm thinking I did make a go at it when it came to using, let's say, VersaFine inks and other inks. I mean, you could try to make a beautiful background even with them, but the best results come with the distress inks, of course. Let's see if these react with water, just for experimental purposes. So the distress ink is there and the Memento is there. And I'm just going to let it sit there for a minute or two. And I'm going to take a dry piece of paper and just blotch it off like that. So the distress ink really gives a nice result. The memento ink does react a little bit, but not as much as the distress ink. That is my experience. So there we have it, like that. So let's see if I could move on. And when it comes to certain ink pads, I mean, I'm not sure every kind of a scrapbook store does bring in the re-inkers, but there are some brands that have re-inkers. Distress inks, definitely. And the good thing about distress inks re-inkers is that you can watercolor with them. You get a really nice intense color. You could of course also just take some ink on your clear block like this. You could take your water brush or another brush, just pick it up like that and start coloring away, you see? So it's really easy with watercolors. It's a really relaxing way of coloring, I think. And when it comes, let's see if I can hold my thread here. So I'm thinking that other water-based re-inkers could also work in that fashion. There is a refiller for re-inker for Memento, for example, archival ink. There is even a re-inker for Perfect Medium re-inker, and that is a glue pad, as I say, but it's not the correct term now. It's an embossing pad. And then I've got the Versafine and so forth. Even some of the metallics for StazOn do have re-inkers, and even the Distress Embossing ink does have a re-inker. So there are many re-inkers out there on the market. So let's see where I could go. So I have sort of talked to you a little bit about the paper type. So if you are going to do some alcohol pen coloring, you should definitely use the sort of color copy paper that is sold mostly in hard office supply stores. And if I'm going to do a motif, let's say I'm going to go for, let's take the butterfly for instance, and I want to do some alcohol pen coloring, then I should definitely want to recommend you to use Memento ink. Memento Tuxedo Black, that is my favorite because it dries quickly, it's easy to work with, and make sure you re-ink your ink pad. I mean, I have used this one quite a lot, so it's rather dry, so you have to take it for what it is. I'm just going to ink it there. I mean, it dries instantly. I don't have to worry about the ink bleeding or so. So in this case, I've just taken 3 green hues from the Spectrum Noir pens. It's the CG2, CG3 and CG4. So I'm hoping that they will have a sort of nice blend to them. I'm just going to use the small brush, small tip there. And I'm not going to cover up all the butterfly, but I'm just going to put in like that and just to see where it ends up. I like the Spectrum Noirs because they I mean, as the Pro Marker pens, which I started off with, or actually I started off with brushables, but I do like how easy and quick it is to color with these. There's no fuss about things. I'm just going to put in ink or color like that, and I'm going to finish it off with, you know what, I actually think I took the wrong one. I didn't look out properly. So let's see if I should go in with the CG2 once more. So one thing, if you're using a darker color on a lighter color, you should absolutely go back with the lighter color just once more, because you would like to blend them. So this is the 3 one. But and you see, it doesn't bleed outside the lines or anything. It's easy to stay within the lines, and I do like the Memento on this kind of a paper with Spectrum Noir or other alcohol-based pens. Let's see where I am right now. And when it comes to watercoloring, I should recommend you to use a watercolor paper because it can hand or hold more water than, let's say, this printing paper. You should think about, if you want to do some detailed stamping, let's say with texts and such, you should go for a watercolor paper which doesn't have that much texture. And you might use the watercolor paper which is perhaps a bit thicker and harsher with the grain and everything. Then that you could use for something else. But I mean, you should definitely go for something with a really, really nice texture. And you could also stamp on manila, as you can see. I mean, the results are beautiful, especially when you are mixing things. But just making a basic stamped image here as well is a rather nice thing to do. And I tend to like using archival ink when I do so, because then I'm free to color it in with some water-based medium, actually. There you have it. I love butterflies as well. So you could also, as I have mentioned to you before, you could stamp on plastic and you can stamp on chipboard and carton and metal, especially with the StazOn ink. I mean, that one really sticks to any kind of a surface and it dries quickly, as I've told you. So when it comes to coloring, you might have to be on the lookout for a really good water brush. I would like to recommend you this one from Prima. This is sold in a set of 2 for a rather low price, 89 crowns. It could be perhaps $10, I'm not sure. And then there's the first brush that I bought from Sakura. And this one is called Koi. And this one is from Japan, so the screwing is in the other direction. Bear in mind that, so you don't just force those hinges apart. And as for the other one from Prima, you can actually just go in the way that we are used to here in the Western world. You might also want to have a brayer. Let's say you were to stamp with, let's say, acrylic paint, because you can stamp with different kinds of things. You could actually stamp with coffee if you want to. But just make sure that if you are using acrylic paint, do not have too thick a layer, because if you're going to put your stamp in it, it's going to be covered in acrylic paint, and then you need to work more in order to clean it up. And a silicone mat or something else that is wipe friendly is good to have in the as a table surface. I have shown you the stamp press. I do like my stamp press. I mean, Fiskars is one brand, and then there's another one that's called Crafts 2, which we have found here in Sweden anyway. And another thing is the Stamp-a-ma-jig. If you have a rubber stamp, let's say, and you want to be able to make sure that you get it exactly where you want it. Let's see. I'm just going to turn it over like that. So I'm just going to take some black ink just to see where I am at when I'm stamping. So in this case, I'm just going to stamp it. Have a sort of a hard plastic sheet like that. And I'm then going to place this Stamp-a-ma-jig, which is from Inkadinkado. Place it in the corner there. And then I'm going to place this stamp there. So I get an imprint on where to put it when I'm going to stamp it. So there we have it. So if, let's say, I would want to have it right here, I'm going to position it here. So this is a stamp positioner, really, Stamp-a-ma-jig. So I need to ink it up once more. I did have archival ink, I believe. So let's see, I want it really there. And now that I have inked up my stamp, I can take that one away, put the stamp in the corner and press it down. And there we have it. So the Stamp-a-ma-jig or the stamp positioner is a really nice tool to have if you want to make sure that you end up where you want to. But you have to pay attention, you need to clean this one up. Depending on the ink you have used, it's easy. Or you need to use the StazOn cleaner if you have used the StazOn ink, of course. Or another alcohol-based ink. What else would I like to share with you? Well, when it comes to acrylic blocks or stamp blocks of some kind, I do like the ones that come from Inkadinkado. They are thick, they have curved lines, they have a grid pattern, and they are great to hold on with. I mean, I can really make sure that my hands work as a stamp press, but sometimes I just slip, I drop it. So in that case, I would really like to recommend you the stamp press tool. It's a really nice way. But I do like these for small stamps and everything. It's quick and easy. And some people like to have a sort of a cushion or mouse mat or something underneath the paper when they are stamping to get a better imprint. So that might be something that you like. And I have talked to you about easy mount or tack and peel when it comes to mounting your stamps either on the block or just mounting it so you have a proper sort of rubber stamp that can be fastened or adhered temporarily to that clear block. And I didn't show you the embossing tray. I mean, if you have a embossing powder that you aren't using as often or frequently as the ones that I'm keeping in my jars, this might be a good solution, because then you could do a stamping, and then you could just pour some powder like this, and then you can just pour it back into the jar with the opening there. So this is a nice tool to have as well. And the heat tool, of course, could be nice to have. I believe that the ones from Ranger are really nice to hold on to. I mean, they remind you of hair blowers. Hair blower, I think it's called that. These come in white and black. I mean, they will turn black eventually, so you might as well get a black one from the get-go, now couldn't you? And, well, I think that is it, basically. I think I have, well, you know, I do have another page. Hang on. When it comes to stamping, I'm always making sure that I have a flat surface. I do not want cracks or any bumps or any unevenness when I'm stamping. I'm also taking care that the table isn't going like this. I mean, the table must be really hard and sturdy. So that's something you should think about. And let's see. It is easier, of course, to stamp on a smooth surface than on a ragged surface. So remember that. So the smoother the paper, the better the result, of course. But that also has to do with the kind of stamp you're using and the kind of ink you're using. So all those three things actually come to play together. And when it comes to stamping, I haven't shown you the rocker blocks, now have I? This is a really nice stamp block that I like. I'm just going to take the rubber stamp here. It does have an edge, or a rocker I should say, here. And this is the motion you should stamp with. So I'm just going to stamp it on this acrylic piece of paper. I'm just going to go for the red one. And let's see. When I'm stamping it up like this, or inking it up, sorry, I seem to be confused about the words today. I'm inking it up, and then I'm just going to place it with the bottom piece of the stamp first, and then I'm just going to rock it like this once, and that's it. I'm not going to rock twice, because then I might have the unfortunate event of shifting. But depending on how secure of your hand, of course you could go back and forth, but for me, it's mostly enough with just one. And you can see how far the distress ink stretches from that one to that one to that one and to that one. So bear in mind that if you are going for a paler color, stamp it off once and then you get that or that or that. So, I mean, that's a fun way to actually make your ink pads stretch longer and get more hues out of them. Some other ink pads might work as well. I mean, just look at it. It just goes on and on and on. So if you want to make a background that isn't that vivid, you could still make a go out of it. So distress ink rather stretches, I must say. And what else could I say? I would like to recommend you to make those color charts. I mean, I believe that, I mean, it's fun to actually do it. It gives you a sort of quiet moment. You know what to do. You don't have to think about too many things, and just get a sort of a really nice way to see what you have and what you haven't got. And when it comes to stamping, I mean, there is more than just the basic stamping. You could do collage stamping, you could do masked stamping, generation stamping, as I did here. You get lots of imprints out of just one inked up image. Paper piecing, powder embossing and everything. And remember to have fun. And if you don't master a technique from the get-go, don't give up. Take a break, come back. Take another break and come back yet again. And have fun, lots of fun. And there are so many stamps out there that want to be discovered. I'm going to sign off right now, and I hope to see you the next time. Bye-bye.